This man's been on the show multiple times before. As you can see, there's the Durham Bulls cap signed by Kevin Costner and this man who wrote and directed it and is the inspiration for Bull Durham. Ladies and gentlemen, here to promote for the first time Bull Durham the musical.
Oh yeah.
Ron Shelton.
Hey, all right.
Well, I'm not going to sing and dance for you.
But I've known you for a long time. It's a pleasure to be able to say that. And you have been, to use the Goodfellas phrase, cultivating this caper for quite some time, right? The Bull Durham the musical, and it's finally now happening, Ron?
It's had a longer, development, than normal. Although all musicals take forever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning why, because you can only rehearse them every 6 months, really, because you have to pay 40 people to come in and sing and dance, and then you spend the next 6 months fixing it, and then you bring them back. So, we were fully financed about 7 years ago, ready to go, a theater, and two tragedies happened. One was our principal financing producer, who has 7 Tonys, and was a minority owner of the Cincinnati Reds. He was the perfect guy, had a heart attack and died. And then we put him, as we've tried to replace him, who was irreplaceable, the pandemic hit. And everything shut down. We had to give all the money back to the investors and start all over, and we are.
And here we are, and it's finally starting to run through Sunday, November 2nd at the Paper Mill Playhouse in Millburn, New Jersey. And then, so this is off Broadway, to say the least. But I mean, the idea would be for this to catch a little bit of fire and go.
Well, catch a lot of fire is the goal. I mean, we've got Tony winners everywhere and Tony nominees everywhere. And the director and the cast and the choreographer, and I mean, it's a big time show. And the Millburn, if AAA in baseball is a phone call away, this is like 4A.
I love it.
I mean,
sure.
It is. People use it for shows right off of Broadway, after they've closed, or as the jumping off for Broadway, and that's where we hope we are.
That's where you hope you are. And okay, let's just jump into it. So, which scenes from the film are now set to music that we would be interested in?
Well, there's a lot of lines from the script that turn into songs. I mean. You may remember when thick-headed Nuke LaLoosh is being tutored by Annie in one way and crashed by another. It finally dawns on him. He says, I figured it out. Winning is better than losing. And winning is better than losing is a huge show-stopping number with bats flying, and it's pretty great. Another time, there's another line, every woman deserves to wear white. That's the big woman empowerment number.
Yes.
There's a few scenes there's some earthy language, maybe not quite as earthy as the movie. And there's no bathtub scenes, sorry folks. But,
Is lollygagging the ball?
Oh, there's a big lollygag. We lollygag, we fight, we curse. It's a very spirited, very physical, highly entertaining, and we think funny show, and so do audiences. So I think everybody could use a laugh right now, and this appeals across the board, like the movie did. You didn't know if that movie was it polarized. No, this brings us all together.
Sure. And two-time Tony nominee Carmen Cusack is Annie Savoy in this.
Fantastic.
Right.
Fantastic.
And Nick Walker is Crash Davis.
Yeah, by the way, he was in Hamilton. He's now the lead in the Phantom reboot. In fact, he was going from rehearsal to the lead in Crash Davis and Phantom every day, but he's now he's done with Phantom. But we have a discovery for Nuke, and just I don't know. I really. We ran it a few years ago in Atlanta. This is a much, much further advanced version with a new director and a new cast. But it was and we brought, the Atlanta Braves came to see it. And the Gwinnett Braves, the AAA team, was right there.
Sure.
And the manager of Gwinnett was Snitker, who was, before he got his shot in the big leagues.
Right.
And so he and the coaches said, this is the first musical we've ever been to that we like as much as our wife, because the women drive the guys to the musical, and you go to serve your lady, and you pretend you like it. Well, actually, I think this is for everybody.
Well, you've always had strong female leads in every single thing that you've done, Ron. Like that's sort of like your secret sauce, is you write very strong female characters in otherwise one would think pop culture iconic stuff that is for men, but not really. Like you kind of hide that thing really well. You have that hidden ball trick in everything that you do.
Well, it's
here,
not
Ron.
very hidden, really. I mean,
right, I know.
I mean, Annie Savoy tells the story in Bull Durham.
Right.
I mean, who's the most successful person at the end of Why We Can Jump? Rosie Perez. Mm-hmm. And it's Rene Russo's character, Dr. Molly, a shrink in West Texas. It's a tough gig, and she's the one that explains to Roy McAvoy, Kevin Costner, what you just went through, because he can't figure it out. So, I think that the men become clearer if the women are stronger, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Ron Shelton here on the Rich Eisen Show. So, Bull Durham, making it. Walk me through who was first attached to that when you first started coming up with the idea of Bull Durham and then getting it off the ground. Who was first attached?
I got Kevin before people quite knew who he was, but we knew people were going to quickly find out. And while we were trying to get it financed, The Untouchables came out, and then No Way Out came out, and that greenlit the movie because...
No Way Out greenlit Bull Durham.
Because the New York Times said Kevin Costner is a movie star. And 30 days later, we were in pre-production. I mean, we shot it almost immediately.
No kidding.
Yeah, much quicker than today. You can't pull that stuff off today. It's too bureaucratic.
But casting Susan Sarandon, I know, was definitely I guess a to-do. Correct? Like she wasn't immediately greenlit for that.
Studio,
correct?
For some crazy reason, didn't approve of her. And then she flew on her own all the way from Italy with her 2-year-old daughter, Eva, to audition at Warner Brothers, at the Warner Brothers lot.
Right.
So her agent called, and I said, she's not approved. Well, she's going to be there tomorrow afternoon. I said, well, I'll meet her. And I brought Kevin in, and she was great. And then we called the studio and said, we like Susan, can you put her on the list? And the studio head, who's become a friend of mine, said, she just came in the other day. I saw her, and she looks great. Yeah, we'll approve her. Well, she didn't come in the other day. She went right from the audition to the hallway of the studio, looking like $1,000 million. Walked up and down the hallway schmoozing, and she found Mike, met a voice, office, Mike, how are you? And then he called and said, hey, I saw her a few weeks ago. No, you saw her 5 minutes ago. and so that was a willful act by her, but she was great, obviously. But the first choice for Nuke was Charlie Sheen.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who really is a good pitcher.
Right. I mean, we all remember him from Major League, but that was after.
Later,
that was later. So Charlie Sheen was originally. Why? How did Tim Robbins get that gig then?
Well, Charlie, he turned it down. He still talks about this because he was sort of committed to 8 Men Out, the Black Sox scandal.
That's a great movie. John Sayles directed movie.
The same studio was making that same summer. Nobody would make a baseball movie, and Orion made 2 at the same time. And
so it was the same studio that was making Bull Durham was making 8 Men Out
at the same time.
About the Black Sox scandal.
Now, so Charlie could have got out of that because Nuke was a bigger part.
Yeah, right.
But he didn't. And now he's got his book out and his documentary out, and he said his wild ride continues.
But so Tim Robbins showed up on your radar screen. How then?
No, he just came into an audition with 47 other people.
No kidding.
He was this big hulking guy, and he had this sweet face, and was awkward. And I knew he wouldn't pitch as well as Charlie, but he otherwise was the character, and that's how he got it. But Charlie could have got it.
So then you got Costner. Was the guy that helped you greenlight it because No Way Out was such a hit.
Yeah.
Susan Sarandon basically got herself the role by showing up and just being Susan Sarandon and looking like Susan Sarandon and acting like Susan Sarandon. and Tim Robbins gets the gig because Charlie Sheen didn't have 8 men out, and he just showed up, and you're like, that's Nuke.
I didn't right away because he didn't tell me. He was lying, which within industry standards, you know. He was lying.
Right.
And his agents were lying. They say he's never been in a movie. He's a discovery. Blah 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 blah. Well, he'd been in the lead in Howard the Duck, which was the biggest bomb in the history of Hollywood. But I didn't see it. Nobody saw it. Nobody knew he was in it. He was great, though. And he also was, he's 6'5".
Right.
And most of the guys reading for Nuke look like younger versions of Kevin. And if you're the woman, you're going to not choose the younger version of Kevin. You're going to choose the mature 35-year-old version of Kevin. So I wanted somebody who was very different than Kevin, and that was Tim.
What's your... I'll screw it. I know you're probably going to say it's tough to decide, but what's your favorite line of that movie? You're proud. Here we are all these years later, like that. I stuck the landing on that one based on my own experiences or anything like that, Ron.
Well, not counting the rose goes in the front, big guy. When Kevin is telling Tim, when Crash is telling Nuke, giving his last instructions before the big leagues. He says, they're going to light you up. Don't worry about it. You're going to, he says, this game is played with fear and arrogance. And of course, Nuke says fear and ignorance, but fear and arrogance is probably the closest to what I believe of any line I've ever written. Meaning, if we don't all acknowledge that we're afraid and don't know what we're doing, we're lying, or we're not honest. And you're not fully human if you aren't arrogant enough to say, look at me, I'm here, I'm going to do it. So it's the acknowledgement of both, I think, that makes greatness.
Did you realize that when you were playing? Like, when did that dawn on you, fear and arrogance? When did that hit you?
Well, I think if you're an athlete, you're making a living as an athlete,
right.
You know right away that everybody you're competing against is the best in their high school, the best in their college, whatever.
Yes. Right.
And they're all playing with a bit of fear and a lot of arrogance. And that we're all equal that way. It's just some guys have better fastballs. And but most baseball players, most athletes, maybe not in football, or maybe there's the handful of guys in any sport that can do things that nobody else could do. Nobody else could run like Barry Sanders, can do the things that Mahomes can do, or whatever. You know, there's those guys.
Sure. Ohtani, another example.
Ohtani,
right.
Or the lineman for the Rams, Aaron Donald,
right.
Those guys. Everybody else, there's a sort of similar, really better than almost anybody else, but it's these guys that succeed. It's the smarter versions that figure out how to apply the same 6'2", 240.
Right.
Than the other guy who runs the same 60 time and has the same, So it becomes a mental game at a certain place.
Well, isn't that, what's the line about golf? The most important 5 inches or whatever, something like that, or are the ones between your temples, right?
Between the temples.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And obviously we all know that from, obviously, Tin Cup's another example of that.
Yeah, there's
right?
I've got a movie in the spring based on a book that was written 40 years ago. It's about Ted Williams when he was 70, and he was the fly fishing king of Keys. Yeah. And a writer goes down to interview him without being invited, and Ted hated writers, and it's about these 2 guys. And I've got 2 great actors to play each one, Ted at 70 and the writer. And this is the spring movie, we believe. And and I interview a lot of guys who knew Ted and played for Ted when he managed. We forgot he managed about 8 years after playing. And they said they were all at spring training and he was showing up, and they were terrified of Ted Williams because of his reputation.
Sure.
Although he was not the guy. The book shows players loved him, coaches loved him. Everybody loved him except the Boston press. And every player said, you guys are all in the big leagues for a reason. I'm not going to mess your stance. I'm not going to tell you how to hold the bat or where to stand. You figured that out to get here. All I'm going to talk about is this, the middle approach. And the team average went up 35 points that year.
Amazing.
And he was manager of the year. Just talking about this.
One of my, my first iteration with ESPN, the 7 years that I was there, being the voice of Major League Baseball on ESPN Radio, and then SportsCenter would be sending me to the World Series, where I met Charlie Sheen, by the way, or the All-Star Game, where I was for Fenway Park, in 1999 for the All-Century team. Kevin Costner was the one who introduced all the players, and they came out, and the current All-Stars lined up from home plate to third base, home plate to first base, and then the All-Century team lined up. I'm getting goosebumps just even remembering it, Ron, from first to second and second to third. And it was just this constellation of all-time greats, current and former. And then Ted Williams came out and threw the first pitch, if you remember.
Right. Yeah.
And McGuire and told me, because he went up to Ted Williams and they had a conversation. And I asked McGuire, what did Ted Williams say to you? And he said, Williams asked him that when you hit one right on the screws, do you smell the wood burning from your bat? Is what he asked him. And McGuire says, I told me I do. That the baseball, the horsehide, and the strings, when it hits the wood in a certain way, it would like light somewhat of some smoke. And I thought, I'm like, this is just next level. Like that. That's not mortals talking. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's the beauty of baseball. That happened to me is when the club, this moment
there was
right
a clubhouse
there.
fire. That was what it. Oh yeah. It was. It's a great moment, and Ted came out.
I'll never forget it.
It was like those guys were nothing, and Ted was the guy.
Right in the middle. I mean, and Gwynn and Griffey Jr. kind of held him up as he threw the pitch to Fisk. I was right behind home plate. Clearly, I'm not going to approach this. Like I'm leaving these folks to themselves here. I will never forget it. I will never forget that night. It's truly one of the greatest nights of my entire life and career. Unbelievable, standing on that turf.
And he died 3 years later. Yeah.
Before I let you go, what's your favorite sports movie? Ron, I've never asked you this. I've never asked you this when we were a couple fingers into a drink or in your previous appearances here. I can't believe it. But what is your favorite sports movie?
The Hustler.
You consider that a sports movie?
Yeah.
Okay. Then why? Why is it a sports movie? And then why?
It's competition.
Okay.
It is about everything that we're talking about in these other sports, the head game.
Okay.
It happened to star Paul Newman, Jackie Gleason, and George C. Scott, and I forgot the woman. She's all-time great. Great director, great. And I think it's so contemporary, even though it was made 60 years ago in a black and white movie. Mm-hmm. And I think it's everything that sports is.
Piper Laurie was
Piper Laurie was fantastic. So that's my favorite one. I like other odd ones that nobody can remember. There were some great British ones, but I can't talk about sports movies because I started making them because I was so hypercritical of other ones that I don't want to come out like being a curmudgeon.
So do you consider Raging Bull a sports movie?
Yeah, it is a sports movie because it's about a guy. I mean, for me, Raging Bull is the best movie about a boring guy ever made because I don't think...
Jake LaMotta's boring to you, or
he is a boring guy. I mean, he beat his wife. He couldn't. He's brilliantly portrayed,
right? And
it's a very watchable movie.
Sure,
but LaMotta is LaMotta the subject of the movie? Maybe. Well, he is there.
Is Rocky a sports movie?
It's a fairy tale sports movie.
It's a lot. Like we've had Stallone and Carl Weathers, may he rest in peace, on. And they both thought a love story would be a way to describe it.
That's fair.
But obviously it's about boxing. It's about sports.
Bull Durham's a love story. I mean, what other? Well, there's a lot of great boxing movies.
Sure. I'm just trying to throw some other ones your way. Do you like Hoosiers?
Yes and no. It was really well made. I admire it. It was, and Hackman was great.
Well, and Hackman helped greenlight Bull Durham in a way because he was in No Way Out, with Costner.
Yeah, he was. And so that scene in the back of the limo really helped too.
Let's give Sean Young some credit, says Ron Shelton, everybody. Okay, all right. And did you like? So then, just to bring it all full circle, did you like Color of Money, which was the technical sequel to The Hustler?
It got Newman his Oscar finally, which was not near. He should have got his Oscar for The Verdict.
Yeah.
Oh, what a great movie that is, Ron.
Yeah.
Ron, that is a great.
I agree.
Great movie. You know, Jack Warden is in that as well. Oh gosh,
I just saw it again. It holds up.
It does. I just saw it a couple of years ago too, where he plays a drunk lawyer down and out, and he gets the case of his life. James Mason plays the opposing attorney.
I think
right.
I think Sidney Lumet directed it, and I think David Mamet wrote it.
Mamet wrote it.
Yeah, it's a great movie. That's my favorite Paul Newman movie. I mean,
but Color of Money is the Hustler sequel.
It was almost kind of a Lifetime Achievement Oscar.
Right.
He also is great in Cool Hand Luke, but Newman. But and Cool Hand Luke is a really good movie. But they don't give Oscars if it's funny. You notice. Tootsie was better than Gandhi.
That year, correct.
By far. Nobody watches Gandhi. Tootsie holds up.
I agree.
Yeah.
Tootsie's.
But they never come Oscar time. The funny people don't win.
Well, come Tony time, let's get it done. What do you think?
That's right.
Let's go.
It's down the road. We can see it from here.
Again, go ahead and find it. Papermill.org for tickets through November 2nd. The Bull Durham, the musical.
And they're selling,
baby.
By the way. The tickets are really selling.
Let's go, man. Let's get it done, man. And because I've known you've been really wanting this to happen for years, and I couldn't be happier for you. And always love having you on here, man. You're the man.
Likewise.
That is Ron Shelton, everybody. Papermill.org to go see Bull Durham, the musical, right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Hey, you made it all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Check us out every single day streaming live on Disney Plus and the ESPN app, 12 to 3 Eastern.